Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Everything Kratom, the podcast about anything and everything Kratom. Great to have you with us on this Wednesday morning, hoping all is well with you. Sorry I didn't do an episode yesterday. I had meant to, and I was starting to do one, and then I was running late, so I had to get going. So my apologies on that. Today I wanted to talk about what I was going to talk about yesterday. Today I'm going to talk about a post that I found online that's talking about positive or pro-Kratom forums. Specifically, this was about Reddit, but I think it can be expanded upon to be more broad than that. So this person in this post, which I will link in the description as always, they said, quote, "Wish this sub was just pro-Kratom," unquote. And their post is basically saying that they hate to see so much negative stuff about Kratom on the subreddit Kratom page. They say that there's already other subs for that. Why post it here too? Just my opinion. And then they had an edit. And the edit says, "I should say educating posts are good with pros and cons." And they're more talking about the blatant downgrading posts. Educational material is great. So when I first read this, I was like, I thought that the Kratom subreddit page was pro-Kratom, give or take. Like, from what I could tell, I've seen mostly positive things on there, overwhelmingly, but that's just my opinion. I, of course, see a lot of people talking about how it's terrible on there. But, of course, when you go to, quitting Kratom, that subreddit, that's where you'll find a lot of negative stuff about Kratom. And the interesting thing to me about this and why I wanted to talk about it today was because it's just interesting from my perspective, and it's like, depending on what perspective you have of Kratom and what kind of input you want to have on the subject, you could view this forum in a few different ways, because this person's obviously frustrated. They think that there's no reason to be so down on Kratom on a subreddit that's dedicated to it. They feel that there's another space for that. There's other forums out there where people are solely dedicated to talking about how Kratom is not a good thing, and that this should be more of a positive thing. And then it seems like after they got some comments from people, which overwhelmingly, there's a shared sentiment around the educational aspect, that there should be educational information. They made this edit that says, I should say the educational posts are good. So I think that maybe some of it was just like an immediate feeling, and some of it was kind of not walked back, but more like modified or adjusted. Their post was adjusted so that it kind of was more fit to the situation. And so when I first read this, I was thinking, I think that this subreddit is pretty much overwhelmingly pro-Kratom. But then I was thinking, well, if someone is not really happy with Kratom and thinks that people are being too honky-dory over it, and they come on this page and see so many people posting positive things about it, they would probably post something saying, why is everyone so positive about it here? You should have your own pro-Kratom spot for this, but this should just be for actual real information. There is a quitting subreddit page, but I don't know if there's a starting Kratom subreddit page. So I had to think through this a few times before I really had an opinion on it, because I hadn't really thought about it before. I just always assumed in the back of my mind that most people on the credit forums were technically more pro-Kratom. But come to think of it, I guess a lot of people do seek out input or provide their own input on that page that is more negative. And but negative, I guess I need to clarify, negative isn't negative in and of itself. It's a positive thing if someone shares that something is damaging their life and they don't want it to damage other people's lives. I would consider that a positive post in a lot of ways. So I have to try and think through this a little bit more, but basically what I'm coming away with is people have different views of forums and different views of the mass opinion of Kratom, and it's going to be influenced by how they see it. But then also there's this additional factor of like, well, what's the content in general look like when you go onto that forum? So when you're looking at the comments to this person's, post, someone says, for real, I'll be honest, I support Kratom because it's sincerely improved the lives of millions of people. It's this long post that's saying like, I think people should be informed and able to make a decision, the full palette of education. Someone else said, I highly suggest anyone looking to share safe tips about Kratom use look into the tenets of harm reduction. A lot of people saying, yes, education. And then you have people saying, I believe Kratom has pros and cons, and ignoring one or the other is an issue. And then someone saying, idiots are going to idiot. I think they meant to be idiots. Idiots are going to idiot. Anyone who takes substances without educating themselves doesn't care about their health. So like that is an interesting thought, because like it seems like people are overwhelmingly saying, I think there should be a balance, pros and cons, no matter what forum you're on, and that there shouldn't be something dedicated to just loving this thing. But, I think technically there's nothing wrong with people wanting to have like a pro-Kratom forum. It's just, I always thought that was kind of the baseline, and that people who were not for Kratom being as much of a thing or as accessible or whatever it may be were the ones that kind of found themselves in the minority in a strange way. I think that's kind of been the case in a lot of ways. But at the same time, now that I'm thinking about it, there's like places dedicated to at least like getting Kratom out of your life. And then I think it's like an unspoken thing. A lot of Kratom forums are like bringing Kratom into your life, but then there's also people saying, no, it's not a good thing, this and that. And I don't see as many comments on the quitting subreddit page, people saying you guys shouldn't be quitting. So it's like, I'm not making a point with any of that other than is to just mention or like observe that there is an imbalance technically, I guess, in that way. But I don't necessarily think that like the Kratom page in and of itself needs to be a positive thing by itself. And I guess the person who made the post thought that at the end of the day too. There's another aspect to this though. This person who said idiots are going to idiot. Let's get past the fact that it should say idiots are going to be idiots. But if you can get past that, it says anyone who takes substances without educating themselves doesn't care about their health. I'm not going to get into the merits of that statement or argument, but what I will say is it's like, is it the goal of this subreddit to provide education about Kratom? Well, look at the description of it. Kratom. Welcome to the Kratom Advocacy subreddit. Feel free to share helpful hints, tips, and news about Kratom. So, technically, by the rules, the moderator instructions, right? Like the rules of this subreddit. I mean, the description of the subreddit it's the Kratom Advocacy subreddit. Helpful hints, tips, and news about Kratom. The funny part to me is that even though that seems like it should be a positive Kratom Pro only subreddit, it could technically be a negative thing. Like, you could be advocating for the illegality of Kratom, and it might be a helpful hint or tip or news item to share that has to do with like not taking it and like, or getting off of Kratom, or saying that it's a bad thing and look at this research and here's why and no one should use this. And I don't know why, but it just kind of like cracks me up looking at the description of the subreddit. I'm realizing now that there's nothing against having anything negative here, but it just says Kratom Advocacy subreddit, which I think is implying that it's supposed to be a positive thing. But technically, I guess that's not included there. So I think that well, you know what? Before I even say anything else of what I think, let's be consistent here, right? I'm going to look at the Quitting Kratom subreddit page, and I'm going to read the description of that too. Let's be fair. Okay, welcome to Quitting Kratom. Our purpose is to give and receive support with quitting Kratom, withdrawal, and recovery. This sub is for those wanting to quit for good. Except for tapering, we don't condone any use of Kratom whatsoever. We have no opinions on minimal usage or usage for pain management, etc. Together we can. So this is not supposed to be pro-Kratom advocacy, anything. Not even talking about minimum usage, not even talking about what's good for pain. Like, this is just talking about tapering and getting off, and it's always for good. So it's very specific. I think that's a good thing. So I think that if anything, what the person who made this comment has brought up in my mind is, yes, a general page for Kratom should have education around pros and cons and just information, and then people should make up their own decisions. I think that's kind of how a lot of things in life should work. But as far as like a positive pro-Kratom page or forum, I think it just comes down to someone has to do that with specific instructions, a specific instruction set, and that the instruction set that's provided here technically is not that specific. I think that a lot of things can be implied, but I don't think that because things are implied means that that's on the books. I'm like a nerd when it comes to wording and stuff. Like, that's why I love like listening to Supreme Court arguments and decisions, because things come down to words, and it's on the one hand, it kind of seems like BS, but on the other hand, it's like, no, leave your opinion at the door and your bias at the door. Let's look at what the words say. And so with that in mind, let's look at the last subreddit Kratom page that I know about that's like a major one. Kratom with 2 M's. Uncensored Kratom discussion. Discuss any strain, side effect, or aspect of usage. New to Kratom, no problem. Ask questions to get answers from our helpful and friendly community of experienced Kratomites. The official subreddit of doublemherbals.com. So I think that that's more specific. It's transparent because it's saying it's the official site of this, of doublemherbals.com. And it is very much just letting everyone know right off the bat, this is uncensored discussion. And that should by default, that should let people know that, okay, you shouldn't be coming here to educate yourself, and assume that everyone who's telling you something is giving you accurate information, because it's uncensored Kratom discussion, which means anyone could bring up whatever. So I think that at the same time, at the end of the day, it comes down to specificity. People need to create forums or spaces that specifically lay out what's supposed to be there. And otherwise, you just need to let things lie where they will, and everyone's just going to see what everyone thinks. And that's just kind of it. At the end of the day, it might be that simple. So there you go. I don't know. But as for me, I like to look at all this stuff. I really am not seeking out all positive comments. Although what I will do sometimes is I'll look at some sort of post or some sort of discussion online, and then I'll search through all the comments and find all the positives, and then search through and find all the negatives. So I kind of split it up myself. I don't really need to have a forum that's dedicated to one thing or the other, because I think it's more rich when there's discussion and when there's different approaches to things. Although I think even if you had an all pro Kratom forum, at the end of the day, I bet that there'd still be some discussion and differences in opinions and things. And who knows, maybe when all is said and done, you'll still end up with pros and cons being tossed around left and right, and you still got to make up your own mind. So maybe. All right, let's leave it there. Again, sorry I wasn't around yesterday. Try and be back tomorrow, and talk to you then. Thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye.